Hello, my beautiful guys and dolls, and welcome to an episode of Before the Curtain. I'm your host, Abbie Campbell, and we are here to discover the passion behind the performance. Artists of all backgrounds will share their stories about what it takes to create, survive, and thrive in the competitive world of entertainment. Finding inspiration in their journeys, we aim to bring you everything that happens before the curtain. Okay, my friends, today's artist is a singer, actor, rock star performer, and theater maven, originally from Melbourne, Australia. He performed in his home city in many A-list shows like The Rocky Horror Show, West Side Story, Billy Elliot, and more. But his artistic work brought him all over the world, including London, Asia, New York, and Las Vegas. On the West End, he was part of Notre Dame de Paris, which my white accent really does justice for, and was in the Full Monty and the national UK Singapore tour of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Making his mark in the States, he was a lead vocalist in The Spirit of Broadway, which toured nationally, as well as Broadway's Christmas Spectacular, where he co-starred with the iconic Debbie Reynolds, Neil Sedaka, and Jimmy Osmond of the Osmond family. He was nominated for a Kevin Kline Theater Award for his role as Squash Bernstein in Victor Victoria in St. Louis stages, and in 2012 was an original member of the new hit rock musical Sleeping Beauty Wakes, which played in New York City and San Diego. In the entertainment capital of the world, he played Bill Austin in Mamma Mia at the Tropicana and was a leading role in The Wonderful Wizard of Song at the Smith Center. I know him from his role at Theater Arts Preparatory School, also known as TAPS, as the one and only vocal coach, and he is proud to say that some of his students are currently appearing in resident shows on the Strip. Most recently, he was dean at the Mayfair Supper Club at the Bellagio, but you can currently find him continuing to share his passion for vocal performance with the students at TAPS, along with co-hosting BattleBots Destructathon in Las Vegas. My guys and dolls, he is here with us today because he is literally the first person to teach me how to use my voice, and it's an honor to host him for all the questions you know I have ready. So here he is, the wonderful Steve Judkins.
Have I really done all that?
Yeah.
It seems a lot. You know more about me than I know about myself. It's great to see you, Abbie. It's really great to see you.
It's great
been a while.
It has been a while.
And as you mentioned, back in the day, how many years ago were we together at TAPS? Was that what
2018 to 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's funny. I meet so many people from TAPS nowadays, and I know everybody, but I cannot put them in years.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kalila was here before saying, I was like, which year was she? It gets to be a blur. But I do remember everybody and the progress that they made with their voices, and you're one of the ones that really did progress and took it by the horns, and I hope you're still singing.
I'm not. Listen, I was just talking to my dad about this last night. I do love singing, and but what I think I loved about singing was that I got to act. And not that I didn't enjoy singing, because I did and I do, but now I'm taking acting lessons.
Great.
And now that's what I love. And that's why I think I loved singing the most, because there's so much pain and performance without using my physical body. As a dancer, I was so used to.
A different way of telling a story.
Yeah.
And storytelling, as we say with everything in theatre, it is all about the story first, and whatever way you can express yourself and further the story, which is why musical theatre is kind of where I landed as an actor first, not interested in theatre as much as I was as being a straight actor in my late teens, early 20s. I fell into musical theatre and then just went, holy moly, this is an extension of me being able to express myself. And I was finding through word and through acting alone, you get to a limit where you want to go further with it, and then suddenly you burst into song and you realize it is an extension of that thought process. And a lot of people kind of criticize musical theatre from the straight theatre world, and there is a bit of a flip, that's just musical theatre. And I'd say to those people, just try doing it and see, one, how hard it is, not just the singing and the dancing, but making it believable through song is really sometimes a challenge for people who have never tried it before. So having you say that is really interesting, because I put story above everything. Mm-hmm. So whether someone's a great singer or an ordinary singer, if they're a great storyteller, they have a place in musical theatre, as far as I can always see.
Mm-hmm. I remember from other both you and then other like teachers and like videos I've seen on YouTube. Cause I'm someone, I'm like, oh, if I'm not taking a lesson, like I'll search on how to do it.
Great.
And talking about, taking your script, right? And writing down the beats of your song or the lyrics, I should say. But then now in acting lessons, the scene breakdown.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing. So it's the same thing. That's what I'm saying.
And it is a craft within itself, learning how to do those beat changes and create a backstory and do all those things if the information's not available, which I think is one of the hardest thing about auditioning for musical theatre, is that you don't have the play and the story behind you, 2 hours of doing the show to then present the number. You walk into a room with strange people with a lot of mirrors and a table in front of you, and you're expected to recreate or create a moment that's got no beginning and kind of no ending. So knowing your material and knowing the beat changes within those songs and having the acting and the story come first is really what makes someone in a musical theatre audition stand out. I think so. Not so much the voice always.
So you started as an actor.
Kinda. Yes and no. It's been such a mixed bag. So I did a production of Oliver when I was 12. So that was kind of got my feet wet into theatre, and that was in Melbourne and Sydney. And I'm from a massive sports family. My father and my grandfather both were very well known in Australia in Aussie rules football. So you've got rugby and you've got Australian rules, which is a really rough game. My grandfather in 1930 won what's called a Brownlow medal, which means he was the best player in Australia at that year for his club. And my father went on to play and then worked as an executive in football he's 80 now and he still works as a recruiting manager for one of the top teams in Australia. So you mention the name Judkins in Australia amongst the football community and everyone's like, you're not related to Stan or Noel Judkins. I said, well, it's my dad and my grandpa. So that was kind of something that may have been on the cards for me as a youngster. However, I was distracted by theatre and kind of was splitting my time as a teenager between Saturday morning football, Saturday afternoon rehearsals for the local theatre company, coming in with mud on me and scratches and bruises, and having the director say to my mum, go get him cleaned up before he comes to my rehearsal. And mum would say, just get over it. He's coming in anyway. And I'd take off the boots and go in and rehearse. And I did that all through my teens. I was at a all-boys private school with the tie and the whole bit. And the only way you could get to hang out with the girls from the girls' school up the road was to be in the choir. So, click, I decided to join the choir. And every Tuesday after school, I'd get on the bus and they drop me at the girls' school and all the boys are going, where are you going? I say, off to see my girlfriends. And I get off and go and do the choir. That became then doing musicals. So about 5 or 6 musicals growing up. And then when I left school, I went to drama school. I didn't go to theatre school. I went to acting school. A year into acting school, I was hell-bent on getting into television, getting into film and doing plays. That's all I was obsessed with at that point. I had an agent at the time. I'd had an agent since I was a teenager, and she called me and said, there's an audition going for the Rocky Horror Show. I didn't really even know what that was, to be honest. I'd probably heard of the movie, but hadn't seen it. I went in there and auditioned, and, it was a big production in Melbourne. It was a big Australian production. They were launching this with the new Rocky Horror Show. And I went in and auditioned, and I had 4 or 5 auditions, and it kept going, getting bigger and better. And this over like 6 months. I'm still at drama school at this point, not telling anyone what I was up to. I ended up going into and getting the part. And a bit of a funny story behind it. I was so naive at the time. I knew how to walk in an audition. That was something I'd done a few times, but they'd said to me, you're going to be looking to play or understudy the role of Rocky. Now, if you know the Rocky Horror Show, that's a body part. And at 1920, I was ripped and in really good shape. Really good shape. So in one of the auditions, they said, today's the day where we have to see your body. So bring a pair of Speedos, some briefs, and you'll be asked to remove your clothing. And we just have to see you sing your song and flex up. So I go in there, keen as mustard. As soon as I walk in, hi guys, how you going? And they go, good, Steve. I know today's a bit confronting. Before I knew it, I was stripped down. And they said, we're going to do that a bit later. I said, I'm right. And just sat there in my underwear. Right. So we do the audition. And I'm singing away and doing the whole thing. And they said, thank you. That was great, Steve. We've got another couple of callbacks to go yet, but you're looking really good. And we're really encouraging, blah, blah, blah. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I go back and they call me in again. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is getting really close. So I walk in. They're all chatting at the table. I walk in and just thinking again, take the gear off. And I see them all giggling to each other and kind of shaking their heads like that. And I'm just there, all keen as mustard, sung the song. And I said, thank you. That was great. And then off we go. And I had to read for another couple of parts as well. So I did get dressed. 3 or 4 weeks later, I'll go, same thing, walk in, take off my clothes, get undressed, sing the song. And then I get the show And about a month into rehearsal, the director, Nigel Triffett, who is a legendary guy, says to me, Steve, just for your knowledge, you know that after that one day, we didn't ask anyone else to take their gear off, but you were so insistent on doing it. We just let you do it. And we just thought it was so freaking adorable that you just walk in and just be all puffed up and ready to go. And something about getting that job at 19, my first really big job, usually in that circumstance, you would get a call from your agent, right? And say, hey, you've been made this offer. They're going to give you this job and it's going to be great. And this is the money and all that sort of stuff. I'm at home at my parents' place, about an hour and a half out of Melbourne. I kind of lived in the countryside. And the phone rings and no one was at home. And I answer the phone. It's this gentleman. Hello, Steve. It's Nigel Triffett, the director of the show. And I'm like, hello, Mr. Triffett. What can I do for you? He goes, well, in every one of my shows that I produce, I have a deal made with myself that I'm going to give one person in that company their break. And this is your break. And I just went, what do you mean? He goes, you're in, you've got the job. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. And he said, can I read you the list of people that you're going to be working with? And I said, I probably won't know many people in theatre. He said, there's no one from theatre. They're all TV and film personalities. It's going to be the biggest celebrity. You won't know these names because they haven't related to America, but the list was like, you getting a list of the top 10 celebrities in America in film and TV, and they were all in the show. So at 19, I walk into the first day of rehearsal. I'm just starstruck, looking around the room and going, there's this guy and that she's off that TV show. And I'm 19, probably 10 years younger than anyone else in the room, and was completely out of my depth. So that job was the first big one. That was, I think, a year's contract with the Rocky Horror Show. And it kind of really paved my way to decide that, and we'll talk about this a lot today, I would imagine, but you never know where life's going to take you. And here's me thinking straight theatre, Shakespeare. I was ready for all that stuff. And suddenly I'm in high heels and stilettos a year later, prancing around in the Rocky Horror Show. Back to the story with my father, who was then still working heavily in sports, still is. He finds out Steve's doing this Rocky thing and he's going to be on at the Comedy Theatre in Melbourne and opening night's coming up, and I'm going to bring some guys from the football club and we're going to go see this Rocky thing. It's going to be great. Okay, Dad, well, you know what it's about, right? He goes, yeah, I got a pretty good idea. End of the show, I come out of stage door and he goes, I thought it was about Rocky, the boxer. And I said, not quite, Dad. And he goes, and he just grabbed me and hugged me, tears in his eyes, said, I'm still so proud, mate. That was amazing. And you can imagine a little kid, me being 19, from a country town where every weekend we got drunk and beat each other up. That was what you did at the pub. You know, it was a rough kind of upbringing. Never really been around the artistic community as such, especially my father wouldn't have had at that point. And just to see the look on his face to say, you know, and all the football guys, these big tough macho boys are all saying, mate, that was bloody great. One of them goes, do you wear those when you get home? And then Dad just goes like this, and this is his girlfriend. And my girlfriend said, like pushing her at the front. So it was kind of a funny experience, but I was really proud of him at that point for just being himself and encouraging his kid and seeing that that's what I had a passion for. And with the football and the theatre thing, that was always, there was a juggle for me going on, partially wanting to represent the family and not being that good. I knew that I wasn't a great football player. My dad would come and watch me occasionally and give me a few tips and kind of, you know, subtly say, if you want to do this, you better really work hard. It's not something that's going to fall into your lap. And then one day, I don't know, out of the blue, he said to me, you got to tell me honestly here. This is one of those moments I need you to be really serious with me. What do you prefer doing out of the football and the theatre? Because I can see you're splitting your time and you're not getting better at either of them. You have to focus on one of them. And I said, Dad, I think I want to be a musical theatre. I want to go into singing and acting and act and all that stuff. And I want to be in the entertainment industry. And he went, right, so let's get it going properly. Next day, ringing up, who's the best singing teacher in Australia? Found out through his friend, started getting me on that. Where does he go for acting lessons? How do we get, and just took over basically teaching me that focus and really deciding if you're going to do something, you've got to do it 100%. And I've kind of carried that idea through my work ethic. I think one thing I'm proud about myself when it comes to work in any field is my work ethic is pretty strong. I go into things at 100%. I don't feel I have the time to half-ass things. So if I'm going to go to an audition or go and work in a job that's not even related, if you can take a great work ethic for something that you have a passion for, right? So, you know, in the dance studio and me in the singing studio, we're loving it and we're in our element. So we have this sense of enthusiasm and passion for what we're doing. So therefore we have a great work ethic when it comes to that thing. My theory is if you can take that same ethical stance as you do to every other thing you do in your life, whether you love it or hate it, you're creating what's called a solid work ethic. So if I have to go and do a job that I'm not that happy doing, but I go into it with the same passion and enthusiasm as I do when I'm doing what I love, then when I get to do the thing I love, there's a consistency running through my life. And I say to my students all the time, I say, look, singing might not be the thing for you. You might have come to the school to be a dancer, and the thought of singing may petrify you. You may hate it. But what about this for an idea? Let's do an experiment where you approach singing in exactly the same way you're going to approach the rest of the course with your dancing, and see if you can prove to yourself that you can create a strong work ethic. And that's one of the biggest things I try to pass on to the students is attack everything with the same vigor in life and you'll be successful. But if you pick and choose your moments, you're going to get lazy, and the right opportunity may come along where you're going to get caught out, not with showing the wrong work ethic, and it'll trip you up, and it'll be at a time when you go, I never saw that coming. Mm-hmm. So I can't see it coming because I just never slack off. Mm-hmm. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. I try my best anyway. There are obviously times when there are days when you have your days, but I really respect people when, if you're doing something you hate with the same passion that you do things that you absolutely love, then you're on a winning track, I think.
Yeah. I always say how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Right.
So if you can put the level of research, care, and detail into something you love, you also have the capability to do that into something that is, again, maybe not your favorite, but it's what you got to do right now.
Absolutely.
And it's just right now.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
At least do it right now. And then when the gig is over or the day is over or when that time where you don't need it anymore is over, then don't use it anymore. Yeah. But how you do one thing is how you do everything.
And of course, in this industry and anything that you're really putting everything into, you have to have the downtime as well. And, I work during half the year because of the TAPS year is 6 months, and then I've got a regular job at night as well. So that's, 5 days a week, and TAPS is 4. So technically speaking, for 6 months of the year, I don't have a day off. So you look at the calendar ahead, like I have this month, and today, incidentally, was my first day off in probably about 2.5 months, wow, where I've woken up and not have to go to a job, whether it be the show or whether it be TAPS.
Well, thanks for being here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I've been looking forward to this, believe me. So nothing was going to stop me. But that, and then when TAPS is over in 4 weeks' time, I will probably take a little break from the BattleBot show and we're going to go sit on the beach for 5 days in Hawaii and just go turn off the cell phone, be with my wife, spend some valuable time, and then we get back, and then I'll get back into the show and my next project. Between TAPS years, I always find something else to do to keep me going because my brain just can't kind of switch off. So I've got the old Mayfair Supper Club band back together. So as you know, I was there for 2.5 years when the show opened at the Bellagio, and worked with probably a lot of dancers that and that went in and out of that job. I created the role there of Dean, which is the male and the female hosts and singers in the show. That was probably one of the hardest gigs I've ever had due to the time of time I was in the theatre. So I was in there at 6 for the first set and left at about 12:30 after midnight. 36 songs roughly for me per night, and constantly hosting the room. So that was tough. It was a tough, and then getting up in the morning and going and teaching every day for 6 hours straight, going home, napping for an hour, and then back to do that again.
Yeah.
That wore me down. And I started to get to a point with that show where I thought, if I don't stop doing this, I'm going to lose my passion for singing to begin with, because it's becoming much like hard work, because to maintain a voice through that, and whilst you're teaching, as you know, I sing a lot during the lessons.
Well, yeah. You have to like describe things and show things, and
it's constant.
So it's not like you're taking a day off.
No.
And
then of course you slip into the old, I'm working in one of the hottest kind of what we call it, like a night spot in town, and my part of my job was to walk through the audience and talk to people. Nothing was to be said in an Australian accent, so I've got 6 hours a night also speaking in an American accent to people constantly. Some people would come to the Mayfair. I had a couple friends, 2 friends that I made there, a couple who after about a year they would come I think it was like every Saturday night with their little daughter, and she got costumes made and everything. It was so cute. And I would talk to them at their table, and they'd buy me a drink, and I'd have a drink with them. And one day they said, I'd really love to take you out to Delilah, the other club, to have a look, and we go there too, and we'd love to shout you and your wife out for a meal. I said, oh, that'd be great. We get there, and I walk up and say, so g'day, great to see you. And they go, why are you putting on an Australian accent? I said, oh my gosh, I forget, you've never met me before. And they went, what are you talking about? I said, you've never met me before. I said, Steve, we've known you over a year and a half. I said, you've never met me before. I'm in character. I say, I talk to you with honesty, but I'm Australian. And they were like, oh my God. They kept saying, you're all night at the dinner. You're joking, right? When are you going to break that accent? And I'm no, this is my real accent. The guy you met, Dean, is the American accent, which got me really good at an American accent.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd get home from work, and by this stage, halfway through the contract, a couple of drinks in, and I'd be sitting there watching TV, and my wife would say something, do you want a drink? And I'd say, no, honey, it's okay. And she'd go, babe, you're still speaking with an American accent. I go, oh, shit, sorry.
Yeah.
I had to
it's gotta
consciously
stick.
snap out of it. Yeah, a lot. It was a lot. So, yeah, that was a really interesting time in my life. And one thing that job really taught me was that outside of musical theatre, you don't know if you can hold a room on your own, right? So
without a story to tell, or without a
being even though I say I was in character, I was myself with an American accent, basically. So the conversations and the stuff on stage was pretty real. And on the first day of rehearsal, we had a big circle, and the producer, I guess, went around the circle and said, I want everyone to tell us something that they would like to get out of this production, something that they want to, whatever it is. I went around the room, and I think I was last. You're watching everyone say, I just want to, provide a beautiful work environment, and I want to do this. It got to me, and I really thought, I'm just going to be completely honest and a bit selfish here. I said, I want to prove to myself that I can step outside off a musical theatre stage and hold a room on my own and know that I can keep that room and be independent enough as a performer to know that I have the ability to hold the space. And that really changed the ball game for me as far as being a performer, being able to get up there and just be able to keep people entertained, kind of improving pretty much the whole night. There wasn't really a set script or anything. We kind of developed banter, but generally speaking, that was what I got out of the contract the most. And then the voice started going a little bit. So I thought, if I don't get out and have a rest, I might not be able to come back to musical theatre. I might blow my voice out. So I got out of that and end up now screaming at robots every night for 90 minutes. Interesting how life takes these little turns,
It's different, though. It's different holding a room.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And it can be, it's pressure filled. At least I think it is. There's a lot of pressure behind it.
There is. And to begin with, it was quite daunting. And my co-star, LaShonda, who is probably without a doubt the greatest singer I've ever stood next to on a stage and sung with, I was just in awe of her voice every night, but she didn't have a lot of confidence as an actress. And she would kind of lean into me and say, can you kind of do more of the talking? She was really shy.
Aww.
And then when we both left the show at the same time, we were talking one day, and she said to me, sincerely, Steve, one of the things I've benefited most from this production is the fact that you encouraged me to do more talking on a microphone, because at the start of the contract, I leaned into you, and by the end of it, it was one of my favorite parts was the interactions. And then she said to me, and so I'm going to go out and do my own one-woman show on the cruise ships. Now, 2 years later, she's booked years in advance because she's got the confidence now to hold a stage. And, I think from every job you get, whether there are downsides to it, which there certainly were a lot of downsides, like I said, the hours and things and the amount of material. But if you can take something from it that really changes you like that, it's only a positive experience. So I look back at that time with mixed emotions sometimes, but at the end of the day, I'm really proud of it. I was the first person to ever sing to the fountains. So the back of the Mayfair Supper Club has glass windows. There's a tower, and when the fountains go off, they have an air system that goes to our sound department. So the track for Luck Be a Lady is actually what they're doing, and I'm singing in the club with the fountains behind me in time with the music. It was amazing.
Wow.
Every single night. So they'd go, fountains in 5 minutes, and I'd go, okay, my ear 5 minutes till fountains, and I'd be waiting, and then I'd hit bop, ba-da, ba-da, bop, 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 and I'd look out the window and the fountains start coming up, and I Luck Be a Lady Tonight, and the fountains, bang, it was all perfectly timed, which is kind of iconic, like to think that's something that's kind of like a bucket list like thing. Like I actually was timed to my voice and all that sort of stuff.
That's
that was really crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me you have videos, because
I do.
You can't do that without a video.
I got a great video. I've got a few videos lying around, but it's on one of my show reels too, and I've got the two girls dancing next to me.
Yeah,
so really
that is absolutely iconic. That's such a monumental moment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just learned so much about you. I love it. I am gonna ask, what What brought you to the States?
Okay, hold your breath. Here we go. I was doing a play. It kind of has to hop skip through London to get me here, so I have to tell the whole story. I was doing a play in Sydney. I was living in Sydney at the time. I'd moved from Melbourne to Sydney when I was about 23 to do a musical, which flopped. Opening night present from the producers was it's over in a week. And I'd moved from Melbourne to Sydney. For those in America, it's a 12-hour drive, different big city, obviously. We close, and I'm like, am I going to hang around in Sydney or am I going to go back to Melbourne where I lived? And I got approached by an agent, a really good agent in Sydney who represented me for TV and film mainly. And I did like a series of 11 commercials for KFC in a year, which is, $150,000 or something stupid. It was just the money was great. And then I got offered this play by a Scottish director who was doing a play in Sydney. I did the play in Sydney, which was great, called Linnaeus, which was about the writing of the botanical diary from the people that first came to Australia off the ships and all that crazy. 3 months later, I get a call from him or an email saying, would you like to come to London to do some Shakespeare? And I'm like, what? Me? And he goes, I just love you. I thought you were great. We got along so well. You're a funny guy. And he said, it's the Edinburgh Festival. So it's actually Scotland. He had won the Edinburgh Festival 2 years in a row with his productions. So I get the thing and we're doing The Tempest, which I was kind of familiar with, playing Sebastian, which I was okay with the Shakespeare, but I'm not by any means a fantastic Shakespearean actor. But anyway, I get to London, first day of rehearsal. They say, by the way, we're doing The Tempest, of course. And then at 11 o'clock, from 7 till 9 in the Botanic Gardens in the freezing cold. And at 9:30, then we're doing Macbeth. And I went, what are you talking about? I said, that's like 7 hours of Shakespeare a day. And he goes, yeah, that's what we're doing. And I just went, oh my God. So I did that. and so it was crazy. So then that got me to England. And then I went down to London. From there, I ended up getting a 6-month working holiday visa. Because I'm Australian, we can get a 6-month just under the age of 26 or 28, automatic 6-month visa is just given. You can work in the UK. So I went down to London for a holiday, had met someone, was hanging out with her a bit. She gets into this show called Notre Dame de Paris, which is a big contemporary dance musical, rock musical. She's dancing in the show. And about, 2 months into the run, she goes, they're auditioning for the singing roles in the show. And I went, oh, I've seen it. I said, that ain't me. I don't think I could do that. She goes, well, you should just go in anyway. I go in and get it. So I get the part of the understudy to two of the main roles. And then I became the alternate for the narrator character. There's 9 songs, really big sing, very, very, really almost contemporary rock musical. And that went on for a while. And then as that show closed, she got an offer to go to become a dancer for Celine Dion here in Vegas. So I came along for the ride and then couldn't work for a year because I didn't have a visa to work in America. I got a sponsorship from a company called Spirit of the Dance, which is an Irish dance, thing. And they were in Vegas, and a friend of mine said they're auditioning for a singing role, but it's for something to do with this Irish dance company. I'm like, I'll just go and, you go to everything, right?
Yeah.
I go along and they said, what we're doing, we're taking the Spirit of the Dance dancers and we're creating a best of Broadway show under the same company. So early in the night, they'll do their Irish dancing. Then later on, or the other days off, we're going to do this best of Broadway show. We'd like you to be the singer in the show. I said, I don't have a visa. And they said, don't worry about it. You're an Irish dancer. And I went, okay. So I became sponsored on a visa as an Irish dancer, but I was really the singer in the Broadway show. That went for about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Touring in Reno mainly. We're up in Reno for a long time. And that ended up, 2.5 years later, I then went back to Australia for a while with my current wife, who was then girlfriend, became fiance in Australia, and we stayed and we did Billy Elliot together, which was fantastic. She got into Mamma Mia. We got married, and then right before we got married, I get a call from the consulate here in America saying, you have won the Visa Diversity Program. It's the green card lottery. Now, a lot of people don't know what that is, but what it is it's an incentive by the American government to bring people in from overseas who don't really want to come here. They recruit people from countries on this visa program, and they're trying to bring in people with specific skills to enhance the American culture or whatever it is, right? I'd entered it 4 years before and didn't get it.
Yeah. Do you have to reapply every year?
So the first one was a 4-year,
Okay.
And I paid, say, $200. It was $50 a year. And then 4 years went by, and I get an email saying, your 4 years are up. Would you like to do another 4 years? And I went, oh, you know what? I've been out to America, back in Australia. We're really happy here. We're living on the beach. Eric Banner was my next door neighbor. He's an incredible guy. And suddenly I just went, what am I doing? Of course we've got to go. I said to Sasha, I said, are you up for this? Do you want to go back to America and let's give this a shot? And we had to be in America within a year of receiving the phone call. So in that year we got married in Thailand. She did Mamma Mia. I was doing another show. And then suddenly a month before we had to be in America, we landed in New York with nothing. All the money went to the wedding. I think we had, honestly, like hardly any cash on us or anything like that.
Wow.
I called my agent in London and said, look, I'm going to New York. We're going to give it a shot. Is there any way you can help me?
Yeah.
And he said, I've got a client that I'd done Jekyll and Hyde with, who's also represented by a New York agent. Would you like me to set up a meeting? And I was like, would I ever? I get to New York. I call Penny Lucky and she says, oh yeah, I've heard about you guys. Come and see me tomorrow. So we go into her offices above the Winter Garden Theatre where Mamma Mia was playing. So we were like, oh my God, her office is above the Winter Garden. And she signed us both on the spot.
Oh.
On recommendation from Paul Spiker, who was my London agent. And then I'm like, and she said, the only problem is, Steve, for you guys is you'll be non-equity and it's really hard to get your equity card here in America. And I said, I think I've got it covered. So I go into equity here in the States and went up to the equity building, and I had a letter from Australian Equity and UK Equity. The Australian Equity saying that he has been a paid up member since he was 15, and UK saying I'd been paid up for 5 years, and they just went, you're in.
Yeah.
And I just looked at them and went, what? And they said, you're in. And I had my equity card within the first week and an agent of being in the States.
Wow.
So, and a lot of my friends, a lot of people say to me, oh, you're so lucky this happened for you. And you're so lucky that, you can sing, and you're so lucky that you get to work in America. And I'm not lucky. I'm a person that puts himself in a position and has, there's a saying, something like luck is purely when, that preparation and opportunity meet at the same time. Mm-hmm. So if you're not prepared and an opportunity comes up, then the opportunity is wasted. And if you are, the way I look at it is, if you've got to position yourself all the time to be in a position when an opportunity comes up that you can strike. Mm-hmm. So I didn't sit around waiting to be told I could work in America. Mm-hmm. I went and entered that program. And then at that point, I was already 2 years before that, when I didn't get it for the first 2 years, I had a lawyer working on a case for me to stay. Mm-hmm. So, these things they're all possible. Mm-hmm. And if you've got the determination and you've got the whereabouts, you can find a way to do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. So having worked in London and America now, I'll be here for the foreseeable future. I'm a citizen as it speaks now. I became a citizen like 4 or 5 years ago. I did 8 years on the green card and then walked in and became a citizen. And again, I don't attribute much of that to luck. Mm-hmm. Luck is finding money on the ground.
Yeah.
But being positioning yourself and really being determined if you really want to do something. And yes, there was a portion of luck getting a green card through the lottery, but I also took the time to go and find out about that lottery. Mm-hmm. No one entered it for me. I went and sourced that system. I went and entered it. I re-entered it. So, there are elements of luck in everything in life, but someone gave a great quote, something along the lines of, funny people call me lucky. The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that. We're hardworking, and you've got a great work ethic too. And, we work hard, and then when opportunity comes, you can strike. And that's kind of, people ask, what's your advice to people coming through in the industry? I say, have a great work ethic, be enthusiastic about what you do, and believe in yourself, and be realistic about castability. That's another big thing that I learned from a great agent of mine years when I was in my 20s. I would go into the agency. I heard there was a production of this Hamlet, for example, going on, and why wasn't I seen for the role of XYZ? And he goes, Steve, be realistic. You're 21, you're asking me to put you up for a casting for a 50-year-old character. I know you can act. We all know that. But next month, it'll be Home and Away or some soap opera looking for a new character for that. I'd say, Alan, I think I'm right for this part. And he goes, Steve, look at yourself in the mirror. You're not the leading guy. You're not the romantic leading new guy in town that's going to sweep up the woman. You're the best friend. And when that best friend role comes up, I'll make sure you get seen for it. And he said to me, just please don't just know I've got you on my books because I know where to place you. You just haven't seen yourself yet. And I was like, right. And then over the years, you start to really understand what that guy was talking about. It's looking at a show and going, I'd love to play that role, but I'm not that guy. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But the earlier in your career you realize that, the more you're at peace with yourself. Because if you think you're right for everything and that you're the right look and the right ability to do everything, it's delusional.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big lesson for people too, is really, really look at yourself. And when you look at a show and you look at a breakdown for a casting, really go, is that really me or am I just wishing it was? Because the more realistic I became, the better I was at looking for parts that were right for me. And then things started to really fall into place.
Yeah. So what makes, if you don't mind me asking this really odd question, what do you think it is about you that makes you the best friend and not the cool?
Look closely at the face. That'll help. Broken noses. As I think for me, it is a physical thing as much as anything.
Okay.
You know, I'm not a 6'2" stunning male model-esque type guy, and that's the cliche of what a lot of the time they'll be looking for in film and TV a lot.
Okay.
Body shape. I'm a heavier set guy. That sometimes, again, to the cliche is usually the buddy who's a bit kind of this way or that way. And I've had those roles through being in good shape or being just the right edge. But I think more so, I have more of a playful nature on stage and a playful character, or very dark.
Okay.
I kind of go between the two. I'm not normally the very straight guy. I consider myself a character actor, and the TV and film work that I've got have followed suit. That's always the way. It just has. And I guess to answer to your question is the proof is in the pudding. The proof in what helps me know that is because I keep getting those roles and not the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And you look at the body of work and you go, okay, I've got to look at my resume here. And the pattern is recurring. I'm never getting cast as that romantic lead. I was Shrek for 9 months. No makeup.
Yeah. Oh my God, stop. Shut up.
I mean, and again, every lead role doesn't have to be the romantic because not all shows are written like that.
Right.
So, you know, you get lucky occasionally where you get a lead role and you go, wow, I'm carrying the show. Nothing like it, you know, to have that responsibility for one and to have that boost of confidence. So someone to say to you, you're the guy. The show is about you. It's an amazing feeling. I've been really fortunate to have landed in that position. You know, I've done about 23 musicals, and I think really, if you could call it title or shared title role, maybe 6 or 7 really big ones. Kiss Me Kate was one of those where I thought I had no hope of getting the role because he is genuinely 6'2", you know, structured guy. They saw something in me for that, and it was probably one of the hardest jobs that I've ever had because of the amount of text in that musical, because half of it's Shakespeare. You got to bounce between the two, then all the singing and all that sort of stuff. It was a long learn for me, but loved it. But having that responsibility was fantastic, and it gave me a big confidence boost. And then a few other things that have come through, like the shows in London. I did the Full Monty in London under Jack O'Brien and Jerry Mitchell. So Jerry is now obviously the go-to Broadway director. Jack O'Brien was kind of taught him the ways. Jack O'Brien ran the San Diego Globe Theatre for many years and directed Hairspray on Broadway and a load of other big shows and plays, like a legendary director. And when they got to London, Jerry Mitchell was the choreographer. It was the Broadway company had come out to London. And just talking about working with people who really can really see you for what you are. I auditioned for Full Monty for essentially the ensemble, but to understudy something of the main 6 characters. And I got to the 3rd audition and Jack O'Brien said, I want you to read for Harold. And I was like, Harold? I said, the old guy. And I'm in I was 28. I said, the old guy, he's like 55. And he went, yeah, I just want to hear you read for it. And I read for Harold and I did the reading and I ended up getting that role. Understudying that role. And in rehearsal, they said the guy that's playing the role, who was from the Broadway company, they brought the main 6 guys out. He's got to go back to the States for 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, you're on. And that was 2 weeks into rehearsal. And all the other boys knew the show. They'd been doing it for 2 years on Broadway. So I was kind of thrown in there and felt so out of my depth. I felt too young for it, these guys. And suddenly I went over to Jack and I said, look, I'm really struggling here, Jack. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to play a 55-year-old man, but I don't have that life experience. I don't know really honestly why I'm here doing this. And he went, can you just trust me? And I went, yeah, of course, yes. And he said, I see what you can do. Just do it. Just do it and trust yourself. I saw it in the audition. I saw what I needed to see. Just get over yourself and just trust the craft, and we'll make you look fine on the night. Don't worry about it. We'll get you looking right. And so I went on, and 2-3 weeks later, I get there and I go into makeup and they say, okay, let's work with you. Before I knew it, the grey had come in, the glasses were on, the fake moustache was on. I was frumped up in a big cardigan, and suddenly I looked at myself and went, I see, I can do this. I get it. I can. I just wasn't seeing it. The acting wasn't the problem. I was just feeling too youthful and energetic. And then when I went on for that 2 weeks, again, it was just like an incredible experience. And having a director, like working for the first time with a director who was really an actor's director, was an extremely valuable experience. I mean, not to disrespect the musicals I'd done before, but a lot of those shows are restaging, or they're directed by someone who's putting the show back up, or a lot of the time you don't get a lot of scene work with directors. They see a big picture, sometimes the small details. I mean, I've done musicals where they don't even do a table read on day one, and you're like, we're not going to read the script. No, let's just hop in at the top. And I'm like, don't we need to learn the play? Like, what's going on with the story? And you do a lot of that work yourself. But Jack had a really, really interesting way of working in that he never told you what to do as an actor. He would plant a seed really subtly until you believed it was your idea. And I was blown away. After a week of rehearsal in that character, I'd say something to him and I'd say, Jack, I've been thinking, I think what I should do at this point. And he'd go, great, Steve, that's terrific. Let's try that. And the next day I'd get home and I'd think he planted that seed in my head two days before I came up with that idea. And I said it to him one day. I said, can I ask a really weird question? He goes, what? And I said, you knew that I was going to get to that decision, didn't you? He goes, yeah, you just needed time for me to plant the seed and for it to grow a little bit before it if I'd have just said, just do it, it never would have made sense to you.
Yeah.
So the fact that he could trick us into thinking that we were coming up with these ideas ourselves, really clever directing, so clever. I learned a lot from that guy. And then Jerry Mitchell now, obviously, gone from being a great choreographer to an incredible director. I've been lucky to be called in New York for 2 or 3 of his shows. I haven't been right for any of them. They're just too dance-based for me. Catch Me If You Can, I was up for, went in for about 5 auditions, but it was to understudy the lead, but I had to do an ensemble track. And it was just too much. And even he was saying, Steve, I'm on your side here. And I'm like, I just can't do it. And he goes, like, you can't, you're right. Get out. No, it wasn't quite that brutal, but that has been a bit of a thing for me over the 30 years I've been doing this, that I didn't train as a dancer at all. I've never been to a dance lesson, and I've done 21 or 23 musicals. How I've got through them, West Side Story, how did I bluffed my way through things pretty well. And another thing that I've taken from not being a great dancer but still having a life in musicals is that everyone has their strengths, right? So if I'm in an ensemble and I feel out of my depth, like I did in West Side Story, where there's some of the best dancers in the country are dancing around me and I'm just kind of hanging off a thing going, over here. I had a reason to be in that show, and that was because I was valuable as an understudy for the vocal part. And my voice would fill out the ensemble. Whereas a lot of the boys are coming from a dance background, didn't have that strong of singing voices. Musical director said to me one day, Steve, don't let me down. You and a couple of other boys here who aren't doing the dancing, I need those voices. And I'd be like, yeah, that's the value I bring to this, isn't it? When, oh yeah, that's one of the main reasons you're here. And that audition, if I may tell a quick story, it's kind of funny and sad at the same time. I was living in Sydney and my mum was having her 60th birthday, and I was down in Melbourne, was my hometown. My agent in Sydney calls me and goes, oh, can you go into the art centre, an audition today for West Side Story? And I went, that opens in 2 weeks. I know a heap of people in that show. It's massive. And he goes, I don't know what they're looking for. It might be off stage singing. You might be doing something like that. And they just go in and see what happens. I go in there and I'm sitting in the waiting room. I was actually in the cafeteria reading a book. This guy just walks up and kind of, shared table kind of situation, sits next to me, an older guy, with British accent. And he's like, hello, how are you? And I said, oh, good, thank you. And I'm reading a book. He goes, what are you reading there? I said, oh, it's Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing. And he goes, oh, interesting book. And I was like, yeah, it's, a bit out there and they're all taking acid. And we had this kind of 5-minute conversation. Then he goes away and I wait half an hour and I walk in the room and there Ian Judge, one of the best directors in England. It was him directing the show. He's the one who'd come out to check me out. Mm-hmm. So I'm still thinking, what is going on here? I do the audition. I say to them blankly, I'm not really a great dancer, and that they're all kind of looking. They got me up to do a couple of little things, which was okay. And they said, can you start this afternoon? And I said, doing what? They said, we want you to play Diesel.
Oh, gosh.
And I said, that's one of the jets, right? One of the main jets, because he's the tough guy that they put up at the fight. When they say your best guy fights out, we're going to push you forward and you're going to be that guy and you'll be understudying a couple of other roles. And I was like, well, if you can make it happen over lunch with my agent, I guess, yes. So they get on the phone to my agent. The agent calls me, says, okay, we're happy with this. Let's just go for it. You're in an hour to start rehearsal. Have you got your gear with you? And I said, kind of. Lunch finishes. All the actors are in the studio. It must have been 60 people in there. And I'm sitting in the waiting room as we are now. And this guy walks through with his bag in his hand with tears rolling down his face. And I just watch this kid walk past me like that. And I look in the room and everyone's head's just down, looking down. And they said, Steve, come in. And I said, walk in the room and say, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew has just been fired. 2 weeks till the show. Get this guy ready. Steve is now Diesel. And I just looked around and everyone's jaw was just on the floor. And all these people I knew were looking at me go, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know. So I go in and they said, we're going to throw you in the deep end. This is the fight scene. You're in it. And I'm like, okay. And they say, right, when he says this line, he says, you're going to fight. This guy's going to grab you and push you forward. And then you've got to run across the stage, grab this guy and pick him up and put your hand back and then they're going to grab you. That's all we want to see right now. So action, basically. I go into beast mode, grab this guy up and like that. And they cut. And then the director looks and goes, that's why Andrew's gone and that's why he's here. Continue. And I was like, oh. So they let him go because he couldn't bring what they wanted and they'd given him a load of tries at it over 6 weeks till they got to the point where they said, you're not delivering. We need to find someone who can do this. And I was, again, right place, right time, happened to be down in Melbourne that day and ended up doing that show for a year and a half. Like one of the best things I've ever been involved with. Even just watching the people dance around me was enough.
Yeah.
And I did some basic stuff. And then, and then knowing that I was out of my depth, I had the foresight to go to the couple of guys I knew in the show who were real dancers. I said, look, I'll do whatever it takes if you can help me here. Every time I get taught something, can you please can we go take me aside? I had just one little 3-part thing we had to do down for It's just a little routine with 3 of us, kind of like a bit of a goofy little dance. Of course, I was petrified learning it. They taught it to me and said, okay, we'll pick up again tomorrow. So my friend Eden, who I'm still best friends with, goes to me, get over here, Juddy, come over here. Took me into another room all of lunchtime. 1, 2, 3. Came back after lunch. I said, I think I've got it. The director goes, oh, well, look, let's have a look. And I did it. And they said, oh, you said you couldn't dance. And Eden goes, he can't. But he got me there, And I still, honestly, to this day, if I'm in rehearsals for a show that has a heavy dance, I video everything when I'm taught it. I video and I say either to the choreographer or the assistant choreographer or someone else in the room, can you please do the routine for me? I'll pick it up as well as I can, but I promise you by tomorrow I'll be fine. So I go home, I take the video, I show it to my wife once. She learns it like that because she's got your dancer brains that you have that can just go, oh, that's that and that. And then we spend the night learning it. Then I go back to work the next day and implement it. And I've had to do that for a long, long time. And I just take it as part of the job now. I figure to myself, it's not their problem and it's not going to be on their time that this is fixed. It's on my time. And it's the same way I suggest this for my students at the school. If you're not a strong singer or you haven't done a lot of harmony work before, they're going to teach you that harmony once or twice on a Monday. If you don't have your dictaphone ready and record that music and go home and learn it yourself and practice it, when you get back to that song in 3 days' time and you're the one who doesn't know their harmony, the musical director's going to lose it. And I say to them, just all you need to do is record it and know what the process is, get a clean recording of it in the rehearsal room. That's your time now. You didn't learn to do that as a kid, and I didn't learn to do what you can do as a kid. So we have to make the time to do it outside of that time. And that's been a really valuable thing. And again, it comes back to, like I was saying before, it's all about work ethic. If you have a strong work ethic and you really, I know that 2 things that really strike me when it comes to my work ethic is, 1, I don't want to disappoint or let down the people who have given me an opportunity to be in such a wonderful show, to be a part of such an exclusive industry. And 2, I don't want to take money off people who have paid to bring their kids to the theatre and I'm going to half-ass it and not do the job properly. And that brings me to another point of, having a work ethic before and also on stage. I see people sometimes in shows maybe half-assing it a little bit, and I'll be watching a show and I'll just be like, why is that person up there? There's all these people putting in so much effort and they're sweating, and there's always one or two people in some shows. You go, you're just coasting today. You might not be in the mood for it, but this guy here has worked for a month to bring his kids to go see this show. If I look out into that audience when I'm performing, I look at all these families and these little kids and I go, man, that's a lot of money for these people and for anyone. And some people that can't afford it and just want to give their kids that beautiful experience, I can't let them down. I don't have it in me. I've got to go out there and if I'm not, and the people around me after a show aren't dripping with sweat and ready to keel over, I kind of feel a bit embarrassed. I'm kind of like, you should be really exhausted by now. Even if you're just standing there singing, the amount of emotional energy you're putting into it, physically and emotionally, you should be spent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I come off stage and most times I want to feel like I'm just like, and half an hour later, you're at the bar having a drink anyway, so let's just get on with it. But, I see people, and I've never understood it as, why do you say you want to do this so much and then you get the opportunity and you don't apply yourself to it properly?
Mm-hmm.
And I see it all the time, and it's frustrating. And you see it too. You're in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
You see people who coast and you go, what are you coasting for?
Mm-hmm.
Go coast in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Go coast in the coffee shop.
Right.
But this is an exclusive and a place that you should feel honored to be in. You're amongst people who have spent their life dedicated to their art and to their form and are really passionate about it. If you're not, then go do something else. Please give the opportunity to someone who really wants to be there.
I took an audition mock class sometime last year, and the lady who was in charge of it made a very big switch, which also very much aligns with what you're saying, is that I feel like most of the times people are saying, you should be grateful to be here because other people want this spot, which is, yes, that's valid, but that shouldn't be the reason you're giving it your all. And I think with people, I obviously I can't say this for everybody, but I feel like people who sometimes aren't putting in 110% of their effort, I think they get too caught up in what this is doing for me and not what am I doing for everybody sitting out there.
Absolutely.
Because that's why we have entertainment. Yes, you can do it because you love it, but it's a service.
And you can do because you love it in your lounge room. If that's the way you want it to be. And to reiterate on your point, as I say, we are being paid money to entertain people. And I say to some of my students sometimes, don't forget what this industry is called. It's called entertaining. And if you're not being entertaining, then you're not an entertainer. And it's when I'm trying to get people to express themselves, as we're talking about, through song and tell story through song. Even if you're new to it and you don't have a great voice, there's really no excuse for not being able to invest in the story that you're telling and just take the knowledge that your coaches and your teachers are giving you and start to apply it. You can only fight it for so long. And then I look at someone and I'll say, well, that was a good vocal performance, but I wouldn't pay money to see it. And they go, oh, I said, why? That wasn't entertaining whatsoever. You didn't entertain me at all. And again, when you go to see a big Broadway musical and you see someone not giving it, you just go, what are you doing? Partially for yourself because of pride. You should be doing it because you're proud and have a sense of camaraderie with the rest of the company that you don't want to let them down too. And even if it's a supporting role, that's why it's supporting, because you're supporting the people who are up there doing something a little different. And as dancers, a lot of the time I can imagine, it feels like framing. Sometimes the dancers are framing the action that's happening, but it's just as important for those dancers to be as invested in the story as what the actors who are up the front singing or doing the scene. And I often think with dancers, I say day one of rehearsal, start listening to what's going on. Listen to what the director's telling the actors. Listen at the table reading, because you need to know the story as well as I do. As a dancer, it's so important for you to go, I know why this scene happens. I've been in shows before. I'll say to someone in the show, I love this scene. Oh, I've never watched it. I say, what? Even in rehearsals? No, I just kind of would, tune out while they were doing that bit. And I said, so how do you know when you're dancing in the next number what the backstory was, because you don't know the story? Oh, I just do the steps and, kind of smile. And I'm like, you're not doing it right. You've got to invest in the story yourselves. And once everyone's on the same page, we're all at the end of the day painting the same picture, right? So whether you're in the foreground of that picture or the background, it's all as important as each other.
Yeah, a puzzle isn't complete without the corner piece.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
brilliant.
Yeah, obviously.
So yeah, that's kind of a longer way of telling how I got to America and how much I love being here, and being a citizen is fantastic. And I would probably still be in New York if I had have fallen in love with the city a bit more. We were there about a year and a half, and then my wife got the Chicago National Tour out of New York, and I got a show called Sleeping Beauty Wakes, which was a brand new musical written in New York about Sleeping Beauty waking up in a sleep disorder clinic today. The father brings her in and says, "Help my daughter, she's been asleep for 500 years. And they go, "Weirdo," lies her down, and there's 4 other patients in sleep mode, and then during the dreams we all come awake and she wakes up during the dream. It was a beautiful, beautiful musical, and I did that we did the Mercator Theatre at Princeton, and then we went to the La Jolla Playhouse down in San Diego. And after that, I was on this coast. New York had been tough, we came and it was a hard winter, and I hadn't seen snow ever in my life, and it snowed, and I loved it for a day, and then I realized I had to walk around in that crap for another month. It was hard work. And then, so Sasha's off doing one thing and I'm off doing another. I landed in Los Angeles to visit some friends who were ex-Cirque du Soleil performers who'd all gone into the stunt industry. So they're all doing films and doing great stuff. And I just went, oh, hang on a minute, I like this. And, there was the beach down there, and we're living in West Hollywood and getting down to Santa Monica. And I landed a really good TV and film agent. So I started doing a lot of castings for TV and film. I ran a couple of really nice little TV spots, which was great. A couple of movies as well. So I did about 3 movies and about 4 TV shows, about 4 or 5 commercials in about 2 years.
Wow.
So I was doing pretty well. And I was like, I think I want to settle here. So Sasha ends the tour. We go to LA, and we've been there about, like I said, a couple of years. And then we both get cast in Mamma Mia in Vegas. So I get the call from the agent, "You've both got the job." And so we come out to Vegas, and we come to the Tropicana here, and about a month and a half into the run, they closed the show. There's a lot of stories to why that happened, but the fact that the place got blown up eventually probably tells you there was a lot to do with the building that we were working in, asbestos and all sorts of crap going on. So the show got closed, and we were like settled. We had a beautiful house, and everything in Vegas at that time was a lot cheaper, of course. We decided to hang out for a little while, and then suddenly I meet a gentleman called Don Morol, who runs the Theatre Arts Preparatory School. We got chatting one day, and he said, "I've got this school starting up and I need a vocal coach. Is that something you'd be interested in? And do you do that?" And I said, "Look, I've done a bit of teaching. I was teaching a bit in New York. Maybe I had 7 or 8 students. Never really considered myself so much of a vocal teacher, a voice teacher, but a performance and especially performance through song. And I do know the voice, and now I do consider myself that, because it's been 11 years of doing it. But audition technique and things like that is where I feel like I really come into my own. And 11 years later, I'm still there, loving it, absolutely it's getting bigger and better. And as a graduate, the school's just grown from strength to strength. I've learned so much about myself as a performer by coaching and teaching people audition technique. And as you know, you guys come into the room on a Friday and do a mock audition, knowing how to talk to a piano player, knowing how to handle that sort of stuff has also made me think, what do I do when I go in the room? Am I doing what I'm telling them to do, telling them what to do, or am I kind of preaching to them and then going and doing something completely different? And I really thought about it, and I said, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. And I thought to myself, what are the fundamental things about, once you walk in that room for your voice audition or even a dance audition, what are the things that we're teaching them, and how can I further apply that to myself? And someone said, what are the biggest pitfalls that you see, having been on both sides of the table? So I've also cast a lot of shows as well, been on the audition side of it too. And I really see it at the school, and I see the difference that 6 months makes in just knowing protocol to begin with, knowing what to say to a piano player, knowing how to arrange your music, knowing how close to the table do I stand when I'm singing, do I approach and give them a handshake, how much do I talk before the audition if I'm asked a question, how long is the answer? And it's all these little tiny things that once you put them all together, especially for an 18 or 19-year-old, they're going into an audition and automatically the people on the panel are going, this kid for a 19 or 20-year-old really knows what they're doing. They must have been doing this for years. No, they've just been taught it properly, and they've had the experience of doing it at the school in a very relaxed environment. where we're allowed to make mistakes, and that's what school should be. I think I always say to students, they get upset when they make a mistake. I said, there's nothing, it doesn't count today. This is practice. What we're worried about is that you don't make that mistake in 3 months when you're in a real audition. And generally speaking, the improvement level is through the roof. And it's and again, coming back to the same thing we keep talking about, is knowing how to tell a story is really important through song, and just the story of you is important when you walk in the door. So I have an obvious advantage in many cases that they're interested in the accent. So I have an excuse to interact with people because straight away they say, oh, there's an accent. Yeah, I'm from Australia. And they say, oh, I went down there to Sydney years ago. So there's my in. That's my excuse to say, whereabouts did you go in Sydney? I lived at Bondi for 7 years. Bondi Beach? No, I went there too. I said, well, you know that little cafe? I lived right behind that cafe. And they go, oh my gosh, now I have a rapport.
Yep.
Now, rapport, and the fine line about that is for me not to then think this is my opportunity to take over the room. When I was a bit younger, the nerves would push me to keep talking. Now I know when to go, okay, I think that's enough conversation. Let's get to business now. And then sort of kind of, and unless they're really, really engaging and really want to chat further, then of course I'll go with it. And then the obvious question comes up, can you do an accent? So then I'll probably do a really bad one, just to mess with them a little bit.
Okay.
So I'll go, yeah, I can do an American accent. And then there's an excuse for them to have a laugh. And then I'll say, but obviously when we do the reading, I'll be fine. So those sort of things just break the ice a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think when I'm on this side of the table and I'm looking at someone in an audition and I think to myself straight away, is this someone that I want to work with? Is this the type of person that I can see myself? We're all human, right? So a director gets up in the morning, gets up and goes to work, and sometimes is looking forward to the day and sometimes maybe not. And he's stressed about a production meeting they had the night before, how the lighting budget didn't come in or how the costumes aren't shaping up. You want to come into that room in the morning and have that cast be a glowing light to you, whether you're a musical director, choreographer, or a director. So partially why my theory of breaking the ice and making it human is I want you to feel like when you do arrive on Monday morning for rehearsal, I'm going to be the guy that you're kind of happy to see. Hey, Steve, how are you today? I'm great, John.
Yeah.
I think things are going terrific. I'm really looking forward to the day. And I can pretty much get that sense from people if you know when you're auditioning people what buttons to press. Normally, if they don't engage you at all, I kind of get the impression they're not interested. But sometimes, again, you don't know what they're thinking because I've had auditions too where I've gone, they hated me, and you get it. And later you say, no, if you knew what was going on before you walked in the room, you would know why you got a cold response. It was nothing to do with you. And you go, And how many jobs do we not get that we don't know wasn't our fault too? You come out of an audition, you don't get the job. You've done this extremely great audition. You feel on top of the world. You don't get it. And you go, what? Wouldn't it have been great to get some feedback and at least have someone tell me why I didn't get the job?
Oh, yeah.
And we don't, right? We generally don't get that. The only time I've ever really had that kind of a no, but we'd like to explain it is when I've been through 6 or 7 auditions.
Yeah.
And you're like, we know each other now. I mean, I've met you guys 5 or 6 times and by now I'm kind of needing reason.
Yeah.
And I would often sometimes say to my agent, who would probably have a pretty good relationship with casting, did they say anything of why not? And I said, and my agent Paul in London would say, do you want me to call and see? And I say, well, if you feel it's appropriate, or if you're talking to them about another client, could you just drop in and say, what happened with Steve Judkins? And then you find out the girl that we cast in the other lead role was taller than him.
Yeah.
It happened to me in Sunset Boulevard. I didn't get that because she was that much taller. And I was sitting with Cameron McIntosh at a lunch with another guy auditioning for the final day for the UK tour. My mate Tim, who was another Aussie, we were both up for the same part. We're both the same height. And I said, well, mate, the good thing is one of us is going to get this. And I'm happy for you if you get it. And hopefully you'll be happy for me if I get it. We had this whole panel of people. We were there for 2.5 hours just sitting. We had a buffet lunch. They were all chatting. We were like, we're in here. One of us is in. And then 3 weeks later, none of us got it. And I said to my agent, I kind of want to know. What happened. And he came back and said that that the girl that was going to play your romantic once she was in heels was going to be taller than you. So the guy that got the role was 6'2". And I was upset, but at least I kind of had some sort of finality to it.
Right.
Like that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And other times you could just say the wrong thing. Unfortunately, I did that in a Catch Me If You Can callback in New York. I'd had loads of auditions. I went in to sing, had 4 songs to sing, and the writer of the musical was in the room, and he said, "What song are you going to do first?" And I went blanked, completely blanked. The one about the clue. And he goes, "Darling, if you're going to sing my fucking songs, learn the names of them." And I just went, I'm going
to go home now. I
just dropped my whole energy. There was like 15 or 20 people in the room, and my energy went through the floor, and I said to myself, pull yourself together. And I didn't. I know that the audition was over.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked out of there I didn't get that. And I didn't.
Yeah.
He was upset. I should have had it written on a bit of paper in front of me on the front of my folder probably, but yeah, goofy.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the ones you don't get. Another one was Rent in Australia, had, again, over 6 months, had an audition every month for that show.
That's crazy.
They started with 3,000 people and they were lined up around the street. And I went in, I had a private because I had a great agent. So there was the people in the industry who got privates, and then everyone else did, the cattle call. And I was up for Mark and Roger, the 2 main guys. And I thought, well, I'm probably going to get, after 9 auditions or 7 or 8, probably going to get one of them, or at least an understudy.
Yeah.
The last day of auditions, they flew the creative team out from New York, and who had final say. And I walked in the room and sung for both characters, had a great audition, walked out thinking, it's just a matter of a phone call now. I've got this thing. Everyone in Australia was itching for these parts. My agent calls me and goes, "I don't know what you said in there or what you did, but they hated you. And I'm not talking about your voice." And I went, "What are you talking about?" They said, you had a slight speech impediment when you sung. And I went, "They have got the wrong person. I'm telling you right now, that's not me." They said, "You sung one song, Glory, like you couldn't get your R's out." And I said, "No, I don't do that, I promise." And to this day, I still think, and I'm not being big-headed, I think they were talking about the wrong person.
Huh.
They said that they couldn't understand what I was saying.
Interesting.
One song, Glory, one song, Glory. I don't do that. I don't think. Isn't that crazy?
Huh.
Yeah, so that was a big one. And those ones are hard. They're hard hits to take, right? You've probably had a few of those where you think you're in and you start planning your life around it, how wonderful it's going to be. And it takes a while to bounce back. And as much as we say to our students, once the audition's over, you've got to get it out of your head and move on. It's much easier said than done, right? You are waiting for that phone call, especially if you've been in the room a few times by that point with them. You're kind of expecting something. And when those big hits happen, I must admit it took me a while to bounce back from that one. I really went into the next couple of auditions not feeling great about myself, wondering whether I was in the right, but I was in my 20s again, so it was a long time ago, long time. But, and then you get another good show after that and you sort of forget about that. And then I went and saw it, and the guy that played the role, still good friends with now, was amazing too, which I was really happy about. He just nailed it. He was terrific as Roger. And my other friend was playing Mark, and I'd known these guys for years, and I was really happy for them, obviously, but secretly, So the follow on to that is doing Full Monty in London. My agent, Paul Spiker, who's passed away, unfortunately, I was with him for 15, 16 years. He says, Full Monty's closing at the Prince of Wales Theatre right in Piccadilly Square. Great theatre, really great. We'd done, I think, 10.5 months. So it wasn't a long run, but it was long enough. My agent calls me and says, "By the way, Monty's closing in 2 weeks, so you've got your notice, but keep your stuff in the dressing room." And I went, "Why?" And he goes, "I'm producing Rent."
Oh.
And I went, "What?" And Paul's like, "What do you want to do in the show? I know you. I've known you for 10 years. You could walk in through either of those roles you could walk through." I said, "I'll play Roger." And he goes, "Okay, I'll give you 2 as Roger a week as the alternate. We've already got a guy signed to do that. And you can also do 2 a week as Mark." I was like, dream come true. This is perfect. So I'm all excited about that. So going back to the story about the ex-girlfriend, had just got the call from Celine Dion to go to America and says, "Don't make me go on my own. You've got to come with me. I can't do this on my own." So I turned it down. And so I never got to do Red. And then I got to the front of the visa place coming into America, not knowing that I couldn't work in America. I didn't understand that I was on a spouse visa. So I get to literally up to the thing. The guy goes, so checking our paperwork, says to the girl, "What are you doing?" "I'm here as a dancer. I'm going to be in this big show." "Oh, that's wonderful. And what are you going to do with yourself?" And I said, "Well, mate, whatever I can get. I mean, I'm a singer too." And he looked at me and goes, "No, you're not." I said, what do you mean? Because you can't work in America. Do you not know what that means? It's PS, spouse or SP, spouse visa. I went, yeah, like backtracking, like they're not going to let me in. And I'm looking at her and she's looking at me and I'm like, we go through, I get in, I go, what? And for a year, nothing, couldn't work. I just sat on my butt. So I just went and played tennis and used the PlayStation every day with the other guys who jumped with their partners. And we just lived it up for a year until I got that, what I was telling you before, until I got the sponsorship. It was a nice year.
Mm-hmm.
Just living in Vegas, living it up. They were making good money.
Yep. What else can you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I have 2 questions left.
Yeah, great.
First one is, was there ever a time that you felt like you wanted to walk away from performing?
No.
Mm.
No, I've never had a job outside of it. In 35 years. I'm proud to say I've always found a way to make it work, whether it be something related to the business, and I say never had a normal job, but probably the least would be a summer being a tour guide on the London Eye, going around the wheel saying, summer jobs and things like that. But I've never gone into another field or looked at another industry. The teaching at TAPS is the furthest away I've been in a long time. And it's not away because, as I said before, I'm learning so much every time I do it and I love it. And it brings me incredible joy. As tiring as that work is, it's 7.5, 6, sometimes 6.5 hours a day, but the reward is well worth it. Both because Don's very generous with how he looks after me and has looked after me so well. I've never had to ask for anything financially or time-wise or anything. It's just amazing. The only time I've ever really, if to say, is thinking of the future. So if you say, have I ever thought about leaving? Not in the moment that I'm in, have been in, but occasionally I do stop and think to myself, what happens in 10 years' time? I'm starting to get it. I've got another thing, just carried injuries I've carried injuries with me all my life. And you'll know as a younger dancer, there's probably a few things niggling already. I didn't get them attended to. I broke my back when I was 19. I've broke my ankle, fell out of a window at a party in Edinburgh, and then had to use duct tape for the rest of the season on my ankle. We were playing ninjas and I fell backwards through a window 2 stories.
Was that before or after you guys beat each other up on the weekend?
I was telling some stories earlier, but so if anything, I think I'm slowly, even now, which is another whole topic which we won't get into today, moving into, I've written 3 film scripts, 2 TV pilots, a musical and a play that are all sitting in my computer. I've got 4 pitch decks out at the moment for different theatrical productions to do with Cirque du Soleil's got a project of mine they're looking at the moment. A friend of mine created Mad Apple here and Awana for Cirque. So we're putting some ideas together too. So if anything, I think I'll move more toward that side of in my elder years, which are now basically. So that's my other interest, which will never be not involved with the entertainment industry. Or Steven Spielberg finally calls and says, "You're in, leading man. Just get on the Ozempic and get a facelift." I'll do it.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Absolutely. Lots going on.
I love that. Okay, this is, I meant 3 questions, not 2 questions. What is something that has surprised you most about your career so far?
Surprised me. I think that I'm still doing it, for one. Surprising from being a kid, obviously, that you'd never dream that someone from, a little hobby farm in an hour and a half out of Melbourne in a little town where there was no one into entertainment, including my family, as I spoke about before, that I would end up, I'm here in Las Vegas singing to the fountains. I guess that surprised me a lot. And the fact that within that journey, there have been so many pivots. Like I think of myself as a musical theatre performer, but really I look back at it and I've kind of delved into every part, from session singing to commercials to voiceover to all that sort of stuff. So I think you and I will share this a little bit. We were chatting briefly before when I came into the studio about how we don't know what direction this career or our lives are going to take us in. And I've just found by staying completely open and just letting the universe take me where I need to be and trusting that it's going to work. I used to be stubborn as a youngster. I thought, if I move out of this city, I'm going to miss all these opportunities. And it's the opposite. I then found out once I moved to England, I went, this is just the start of this. Let's just see where this takes me. And it might not be here even. I might be here another year. We might be off somewhere else, and I'm open to it. I'm never closed off to the opportunity of something different. I might end up doing something completely different in 2 years, and cool, that's all right. As long as I can put food on the table and have a happy wife and a couple of happy dogs, I'll be right. That's about it, right?
Okay, it's that time. What's your funniest story as a performer?
Funniest? I'll tell this one because it's the safest. Because if I tell you many of the other ones that were really funny, I'll probably, if there's anyone watching, I'll never be employed again because of the shenanigans. I mean, I say about treating the theatre very seriously, and it is that, but it's not brain surgery.
Well, you have to know the rules to know how to bend the rules, right?
Yeah, and you've also got to remember that as long as the audience get what they paid for and have a great time, there's nothing wrong with having a bit of fun along the way. What we do doesn't hurt anybody, right? And if you slip over on stage and you come off stage, we're not dying out there,
Yeah,
I say to people, don't take it too seriously.
Right, we're not performing surgery.
Yeah, so I'm doing a show in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it was a version of that Broadway show that became a Christmas show. So during that season, they bring in a different celebrity, I guess, to do their own spot, and then me and another girl would sing some carols, and that guest star would come on. They might do a song or two with us. So we, like you saying in the intro, Neil Sedaka, Jimmy Osmond, and the best one was Debbie Reynolds, right? So just Singing in the Rain. I'd grown up and I must have seen that movie. I had a Betamax tape of Singing in the Rain until it wore out, and that's as a teenager, before I was even really a big musical theatre buff. I was just something about that movie, which no one can deny, top 3 musical films ever made. So Debbie Reynolds is the star, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet, and she comes into rehearsals, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's her, and I'm looking at her, seeing this young, beautiful image of what she was and still was before she passed. Anyway, we get to closing night, I think, and there's this great big Christmas trees that were built to go on a remote control that go around the stage.
Oh, cool.
And the dancers walk through these candles, and I'm singing Oh Holy Night, this big serious ballad. Oh Holy Night. And the dancers are walking, the trees are moving. So I, before the show, took a fart machine and stuck it underneath one of the Christmas trees and had the remote control in my pocket. And I'm singing the ballad. So no one would suspect that the singer would do this. So I'm standing there singing the song, and every now, oh, holy, and this fart machine keeps going off, and the front 10 rows could hear it. Everyone's giggling. All the dancers are just losing the plot. Everyone's looking, the crew are rushing around backstage. Where's it coming from? They didn't know where the fart machine was. They didn't know who was activating it. And it's me the whole time with the straight face, like just singing this song. And it gets to the end of the song, and we walk up, and everyone's just screaming, who the F did this? And I'll kill him, I'll kill him. And Debbie Reynolds, every night, because she was waiting for her bow, would watch that number. I'd see her out the corner of my eye and give her a little wink. And then at the end of the show, I say, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for our legendary da-da-da-da, Debbie Reynolds. And Debbie would come on stage, and she'd take her mic and say, give it up for Joanne, the other singer, whatever her name was, from California. And she'd say, Steve Judkins from Melbourne, Australia. This night, end of night, fart machine had gone off. She goes, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Steve Judkins, who just blew in from the Windy City. And I looked at her and she looked at me, and we were the only 2 people who knew what had happened. And she was onto it the whole bloody time. So that's my little Debbie Reynolds, who was adorable story. And she gave me a wink and a nudge because she wasn't in the song. I don't think it bothered her too much. But yeah, that's some of the sort of silly shenanigans that I used to get up to in the day. A lot of fun.
That's amazing. She said just blew in from the Windy City. She called you out right then and there. That's great. What a story to have within a little icon like that.
Absolutely.
She'll probably never forget that. Or she probably never forgot it.
Exactly.
Because how could you? I think that's all I have.
I have something for you.
You have something for me.
In Australia, we never go anywhere unless, if you're invited to someone's house or studio, you always bring something with you because that's just what we do. So if you just let me jump off camera.
Oh, okay.
So in Australia, we have some things that everybody loves and some things that most people hate. So what they all love is a famous Tim Tam biscuit.
Oh.
And what they hate or love is a jar of Australian Vegemite. So I thought you could have that.
Vegemite!
You can try that out, and if you don't like it, you can prank people with it and put it on their toast when they come to visit.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting throwbacks to my ship days. Oh, you're so nice. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's been great to have a chat and relive some of those memories. A lot of those things I'd forgotten about until you kind of brought them up. So it's really nice for me.
Oh my gosh, this was such an honor. And people can stay in contact with you or contact you or follow you. And I'll put that in the description below.
Terrific.
Yay. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Before the Curtain. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever it is you listen to the podcast. We love to hear your virtual round of applause. If you know of a production or artist that deserves to have their story told, send us an email or message us on Instagram by clicking the link in the description.